Could Prince Harry be in actual legal trouble over the Sentebale crisis? I brought in your favourite DC lawyer, John Witherspoon, to explain more. Hey up everyone, it's me, Stef The Alter Nerd, your nerdy alternative, and welcome to the Dose of the Daily Nerd, where I break down the royal news and gossip of the day that's pretty much caught me eye. And oh my goodness, yes, let's jump into this madness with your favourite DC lawyer, John Witherspoon. Hey up mate, thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing, hun?
I'm good, Steph.
Good to hear. But oh my goodness, has it been an epic few days when it comes to the world of Prince Harry, Megxit, and the whole Sentebale crisis? I watched the interview, as millions of others did, with Dr. Sophie over the weekend, and she said something that really caught my ears, and I thought, I might as well have a bit of a word with our John on this one. So she turns round, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but she explains the situation whereby she alleges that Prince Harry was trying to get her out, trying to kick her out of the organisation by briefing sponsors against her so that it would look like that as the boss of the charity, she wasn't getting the sponsors in, so it would be really, really easy to get rid of her. Now, I've got a few friends in the law tube sphere here on this platform, and I've learned a couple of things or two from my mates over there. And the one thing that came to mind when I heard that was tortious interference. Now, you and I have spoken about that a little bit in the background before we started that video. Well, this video, should I say, when I can get my teeth back in. Could you just explain to the audience what tortious interference is? Because it's going to be better coming from you than me. And explain how this could possibly apply in Hazard's case?
Yeah, well, tortious interference, the root of the word is tort, T-O-R-T, and a tort translated for the most part directly means a wrong. So basically what tortious interference means is that somebody is doing something to undermine the success of a business. It can be a for-profit business, it could be a nonprofit business, and I don't think we have enough facts yet to support an allegation that there has been some tortious interference. I think at the same time, if in fact those allegations are true, which again, no one has said that they are or are not, we're just going to have to wait and see. But if they're true, at a minimum, it looks very bad for whoever has been involved, especially if there's somebody that's relatively an insider in the organization that basically, you know, they're doing things that are wrong and not in the best interest of the organization. But again, at this point, all conjecture, all opinion, all speculation, all allegation. We don't know anything for sure, and it's going to be fascinating to watch as these things come out.
And with Prince Harry and pretty much the rest of the board resigning, will that make it difficult for Dr. Sophie and her legal case against them?
No, because they can always go and subpoena those people and get them to come into court and give testimony about the things that they've seen and things that they've observed and so forth. And I want to just point out a couple of things as well. It's still very early in this process. I have talked to people who have said Harry's going to be on the short end of the stick when all is said and done. And I've also talked to other people who have said, well, Dr. Sophie has the potential to, you know, maybe not come out of this looking so well. I think it's more likely than not that it's going to be Harry who has, you know, who's lost more blood by the time this battle is over. But like I said, there's nothing that is cut and dried at this point. There are no definitive conclusions that can be drawn. And I've mentioned before in other contexts, I've lost track of the number of times that I've gone into court and heard a lawyer stand up and give an opening statement. And the thought that runs through my head is, this is going to be a giant waste of time. This sounds like a slam dunk. It's game over. Why are we all here? And then the other lawyer stands up and presents the other side of the case. And everybody thinks to themselves, well, wait a minute, this doesn't quite seem as clear cut as it did 15 minutes ago. So I would caution everybody that they need to pay attention to what happens, not automatically form a conclusion that supports their own feelings about whether they like or don't like Prince Harry. Another thing I'll just mention is that as a lawyer, when I hear what excuse me, forgiveness, when I hear what Dr. Sophie has said, a couple of things come to mind. She has talked about some things that seem likely to be provable as facts. For instance, there have been allegations that the receipts of the charity from donors have diminished consistently since Harry stepped down as a senior working royal. If that is the case, that's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to refute, because the numbers, assuming they're calculated correctly, are going to tell a very clear story. There are other things that she said, such as there has been bullying that has taken place. Okay, bullying and things of that nature are subjective. They are not objective in the way that numbers are objective. They are subjective. They are in the eye of the person who is on the receiving end of the alleged bullying, and that's her. So her opinion and her life experience and everything else is going to inform her definition of bullying. Her definition might not be the same as other people's. Then there are the claims that there has been misogyny and misogynoir, which means someone has a bias against a Black female, obviously her. When you get to that stage, what you're doing is you're becoming even farther removed, potentially, from something that is like numbers on a spreadsheet, because what you're doing is you're basically saying that you are a mind reader. She is saying that she is able to get into the heads of other people and claim that they are biased against her as a Black woman. It's the same thing, it's one of the reasons that when people talk about, oh, you're sexist, oh, you're racist, and so forth, one of the reasons that that accusation has lost so much bite over the last couple of years in particular is because it has been so overused and it is such a convenient thing for people to say. That's not to say that it doesn't exist, but it is such an easy hand grenade to lob at someone, and it kind of puts people back on their heels. Oh my gosh, I don't want to be accused of that. It can be used as sort of an offensive tactic. And again, I'm not saying that that's exactly what's going on here, because we just don't know. What I am saying is that it can be dangerous, because if you're trying to say so-and-so has certain ideas in their head, you really need to be careful, because there's no way to prove that. And again, it's very subjective. It's your total opinion of what is going on. And I just want to throw that out there. The other thing I want to mention in terms of these board resignations
John,
and so forth.
Sorry, just to interject there just for a moment, because I do have a question about that. If Dr. Sophie can provide evidence that there was, I suppose this kind of misogynoir going on. So what's kind of going in my head right now is this. Okay, she's the boss of Sentebale. If a previous boss of Sentebale was, let's say, a white male, and she can turn around to the court and say, right, this white male Sentebale boss, he was in this position. Hazza and the board treated him this way in this scenario. Now I'm in this position. Here's a similar scenario, but they treated me differently. They treated me this way instead. she can provide to the court something along those lines, would it be more easier then to prove her allegation on that score? Or would it just be classed as anecdotal evidence and it just doesn't matter?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it brings up one of the common comments that is made in legal circles, and that is that correlation is not causation. Just because the previous person in her position was a white male, if in fact that's what the case is, and now here's a black woman, it could be that there's a misogynoir scenario playing out, or it could be that she's just doing things that that her predecessor did not do, and she's ruffling feathers because she is starting to dig into some things. So it becomes very dicey, and this is one of the interesting things about having her in the position making these allegations, because as we've known, she is an attorney. She has great business experience in some very high-powered operations. She's worked with Morgan Stanley. I believe she's worked in a biotech of some sort. And she's also worked, I believe, for Meta, which is the company that owns Facebook and Instagram. So she's not a babe in the woods by any stretch of imagination. And so I think that she's probably smarter than to try and make an argument where somebody can just sort of roll their eyes and say, oh my gosh, here it is again. We're hearing the same old, same old. I think she's probably got better things to say than to rely on something where it's just sort of baseless. I will point out, if there are text messages, if there are emails, if there are logs of telephone conversations where someone can point to them and authenticate them, as they say in the court, and can say, I remember on such and such a date, I spoke to so-and-so, and so-and-so said, we need to get rid of this dumb woman. We need to get a man back in to lead the organization. That's a different animal. That's a different kind of scenario. But in the absence of that, as I said, it becomes very subjective, and it kind of is just the type of thing that everybody says, oh, is that the best you can do?
And so, sorry, before I interjected with that question, you wanted to talk about the board,
Yeah.
and them kind of like jumping ship. What did you want to make your point there about on that?
Well, there are actually two things, and I'll just mention them briefly. You have to understand what Prince Harry's role is. Prince Harry is, as far as I'm aware, he is not an employee of the organization. His name is not listed on the articles of incorporation, and he is not a board member. He is a patron, and a patron is someone, as I understand it, who lends their name and their profile, their notoriety, hopefully positive notoriety, to an organization that allows that organization to get some added attention, and presumably also as an effect of that, to bring in some financial resources. And the example that we were just talking about was, for instance, Kevin Costner out in California. Kevin Costner does an event every year, apparently, where it benefits I think, people in the 805 area code, or in Santa Barbara County, I believe, where it's to benefit the local first responders, the sheriff's office, and the EMS providers and so forth. He opens up his ranch. He says, pay $150. You can come in, listen to some music, eat a couple of hamburgers, drink a couple of beers, maybe ride a horse, or do whatever they do out there. And then he turns over the money, and that's the end of it. I guarantee you, Kevin Costner is not going to meetings in the sheriff's department or in the EMS department and so forth. So you have to understand that is the barrier that exists under normal circumstances by someone who is the American equivalent of a patron, and then you're looking at somebody like Harry. Okay, with that as background, Harry's job, again, is to bring notoriety in a positive way to the organization and to be a goodwill ambassador for the organization. When he started Sentebale, as I understand it, and it's not hard to believe, he went out and he picked some people who he thought would be good members of the board of trustees. And he went to those people and he said, please join this entity and do what you need to do to make sure that it gets up and running and succeeds in its mission and all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. As I understand it, some of those people who have been there almost 20 years are some of those original people that Harry picked. Or again, they were other people that were handpicked. And in fact, Dr. Sophie told a story when she went on Sky News the other day, and she said, there have been instances very recently when Harry has wanted to bring somebody onto the board, and basically he has told certain people, you're going to make the motion and you're going to second it or whatever it is, and this person's going to end up being on the board. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically, I think, what she was saying happened. That's just not appropriate. This is a 20-year-old charity, and Harry's role, and I think in some ways by no fault of his own, Harry's role has been misunderstood by some of the trustees and by Harry. Harry is not, some magician who is telling the trustees what to do. That's not the way these things work. So with respect to the trustees stepping down, I think one of two things have happened. Either they stepped down in solidarity with Harry because they knew that there's going to be a lot of blood in the water, and we don't want to be around when the sharks come swimming, as they are right now, or they felt like this is an outrage what Dr. Sophie is doing, and we're not going to stand for it, and we're going to step aside for that reason. One of the reasons basically is we think Harry's messed things up. The other is we think Dr. Sophie is on the wrong track and may be in the process of messing things up. Again, time is going to tell on that, but it's going to be very, very interesting to watch.
Interesting to watch indeed. And so, yeah, that is your favourite DC lawyer, John Witherspoon, explaining how Prince Harry could be in legal trouble over all these Sentebale accusations, how he could be guilty, not be guilty, who knows? But as John said right at the end, time will tell. We're really still at the early stages of this whole Sentebale crisis. And
that's right. And Steph, let me just mention one other thing, if I may, because I think this is really important. There have not been any allegations of financial impropriety. That's really important, because I've heard some other people talking about, oh, somebody's been stealing money. No, nobody has said that. And that's really, really important. There are allegations that there's not as much money as there should be because Prince Harry is damaging the brand and is causing their receipts to decline. That's basically what Dr. Sophie has said, but nobody has stepped up and said there's been stealing. Nobody has stepped up and said that there's been any misuse of the money or outright theft of the money. But I think what is being implied is that there are some questionable expenditures which might or might not have been appropriate, depending on who you ask.
But as the theme is at this point, time will tell. We are still at the early stages of this whole Sentebale crisis, and we both believe that there's still more to come, and this train is still going to be going on for quite a while. So if you appreciated what John was saying, and of course you did, then do make sure you're following him on Instagram. If you have an Instagram account over there, follow him at Witherspoon DC. If you have any questions about the video from today or any previous videos where John's been on this channel, this is the place that you can ask him the questions. Bear in mind, he may not be able to answer all your questions, but this is the way to do it if you have a question in mind. And for those that like this video, if you want more, and we got a funny feeling there's going to be more with this whole Sentebale crisis situation, then make sure you subscribe to join our Alter Nerd tribe, like, share, comment down below your opinion, conspiracy theories, whatever's. What do you think of this whole Sentebale crisis? Is it going to get worse for Prince Hazard? I think a lot of you guys will believe that, but why do you think it's going to get worse for Prince Hazard? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I appreciate all your faces, and until next time, you guys, laters.